Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.
And welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic, your host. And on today's episode, we have Mark Buchmann. I've known Mark for more than 10 years, former Navy, brilliant businessman. As a matter of fact, we have a mutual friend who describes Mark as a serial entrepreneur. And I run two businesses. That's hard enough. This guy has created very successful enterprises, and we're going to be talking about Amidon. I hope I said that right, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marcus. I really appreciate being here. Amidon is one of several products from a company that we have called 360 Ballistics. And there's two sides of the house, but Amidon is definitely the one we want to focus in on today.
Awesome. So before we jump into what is it and how does it work, can you give everyone just a background of your personal origin story and how did you get to where you are today?
Absolutely. So born in Evanston, Illinois, St. Francis Hospital. Lived in Rogers Park for quite some time. Then we moved to the northern suburbs. My parents super stretched. They were both in academia. Obviously not a lot of pay back in the day. But we were able to move up to an area that had really good schools. And that's where I went all the way up through high school. And then I, upon graduation, joined the military. Realized that University of Illinois, which I had been accepted to, would be a wonderful time for one semester. Not necessarily going to school, but having a great time. And so I went into the military. I wound up flying airborne reconnaissance for the Navy out of Rota, Spain for 4.5 years. Took part in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Provide Comfort, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and really got to understand the electromagnetic spectrum. And that will come back up in our discussion as we proceed. Since then, I've done a series of things, including being for about 25 years an IT trainer at the corporate level for Cisco Systems. I had their highest certifications, along with being a certified instructor for them. Wrote about 17 books in the IT world that helped people get their certifications for Cisco Systems. And then from there, went back to school, got my MBA from Kellogg. And now, as you put it, I am a serial entrepreneur.
I had no idea about a lot of that stuff. I just thought you were a good shot. So
I'm not bringing up what happened one
I am. I want to clue everyone in and get a laugh out of it. So Mark and Mark's brother-in-law is my physician, and that's who introduced us many years ago. We all went to, it's no longer called Frontside, it's called Prairie something out in Las Vegas. It's an elite shooting school, and Mark and I were partners. And we had the exact same gun, although he's left-handed and I'm right-handed. And at the end of the class, it was a 2-day class, at the end we did just a competition between him and me. And quite honestly, Mark outshot me. He's a better shot than I am. At least with that gun, probably with a lot of other guns too. But whenever I see him, I always say, "Hey, remember that time I won our contest?" And I didn't win it. And he always goes, "Hey!" And it's shtick. It's not contentious or anything, but that's our little private joke that we go back and forth. Mark actually took me to school, and I'm a decent firearms instructor, but I don't have the educational background that Mark does in science. And originally, the curriculum provided by the state of Illinois for concealed carry talked about how and I'm making air quotes, brick wall will stop a bullet. And I did some research. I'm like, cool, front of my house is a brick facade. We're safe. They weren't talking about a brick facade. They were talking about cinder blocks. And then Mark got involved with Amidon, and I learned not all concrete most concrete, most bricks, most cinder blocks will not stop bullets. Maybe a little .22, but nothing in a significant caliber that even law enforcement uses. When you go to Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, and you pick up a brick outside and you drop it, it shatters or it splits. And I did a little scientific research this morning before the call. Bullets travel at 1,000 plus feet per second. If you were to drop a brick from even your head high, from 5 feet, the fastest it's going to go is 17 feet per second. So there's a huge difference between 17 feet per second and 1,500 feet per second. And that's the force, or that's the speed that a bullet will hit a brick wall. So can you tell us about Amidon and what it does and how it all works?
Absolutely. And that was a great introduction, Marcus. And you are 100% correct. And I think on your YouTube channel, you'll be able to post a video that shows the difference between standard concrete and what we have. I'd like to preface this with, we don't like to call our product as concrete. We like to call it a material.
Okay.
And the reason that I like to put it that way is as soon as I say, oh yeah, it's like a concrete masonry unit, everyone's like, I know those, I'm done. The fact of the matter is we do use Portland cement in our product, but I like to think of Portland cement much like flour. You can make bread, you can make donuts, you can make cookies. No one ever says it's a flour cookie. They say it's a cookie, and it's a chocolate chip or whatever. So the point of that is part of our ingredient that we have, which is proprietary, is Portland cement. Portland cement, of course, is also used in making concrete. We use a chemical additive that induces molecular level portions of air that act as a shock absorption for that high-speed projectile that you were just talking about. And you're 100% correct. You shoot a .22 at a normal concrete block, who cares? But when you start using 9mm, 10mm as a handgun, depending on how far away you are, or if you go into more like the 5.56, 7.62 rounds, those things are going to explode easily and shatter and not protect the person behind that wall. So what our product does, using air entrapment and using some fibrous material to hold everything together, at a microscopic level, we kind of act like a ball pit. So if you've ever taken your kids and you jump into this thing that looks like a pool, but it's filled with all these little plastic balls all over the place, and you get cushioned, right? You don't go flying down to the bottom and get hurt by hitting the bottom of that pool environment. Very similar idea here. At a molecular level, we take that Portland cement through a chemical additive architecture. We make them into microspheres that are surrounded by air entrapment, and it's all held together by these fibrous materials. So when a projectile hits this, the shock and energy of that projectile coming into that is dissipated through those entranced molecular air pockets and those little spheres. And it literally acts like a sponge for these ballistics. And we have done some hardcore testing on this, and we can stop a 50 caliber round based upon Underwriters Laboratory standards. You can be 15 feet away, shoot a 50 caliber round, and as long as you stop it, you're qualified. That's level 10, which is one of the highest levels that Underwriter Laboratories has. We stop our bullets in 3 inches. There's no other product right now on the market that can do that. So we have taken what's called Amidon Shield, which is pour in place, make a block out of it if you want, do whatever you want. And we refined it to create a thing called Armor Block, which is, if you will, a subcategory of the Shield product line. Armor Block looks like a normal concrete masonry unit, but it's not. It's made out of our stuff, therefore it is not concrete. It is a shock absorbing material. Any mason, any DIY individual can build their wall with this. It has the classic openings on the inside, so you can put your rebar in there and all that kind of stuff. If you then take our Shield product, which is a little more viscous, it's very liquidy. It's what in the industry they call it a slump level, and the slump of Shield is about an 8, so it's pretty hardcore. It's like pouring a bucket of water out; it'll just go everywhere. But since you've already built the wall, if you fill those voids with your rebar for reinforcement and structural support, and then you put the shield in there, it will take all the air out of it because it's so liquidy. But once everything is hardened up in that wall, it becomes an 8-inch ballistic barricade. Again, stopping a 50 cal in 3 inches. No spalling, which means stuff coming out the backside of that wall. No ricocheting or anything like that, and a very minimal amount of forward backsplatter, stuff coming back from where the bullet entered. So it's an amazing product. It's fully patented, and it's now available online.
Terrific. Where is it available? What's the website?
Yes, fantastic question. If you go to www.360ballistics.com, you will see that there's an option to look at our shoot house side of the house or our Amidon shield side of the house. And obviously select the Amidon shield side, and from there you can go on and order.
Okay, so you said a couple things that I'm going to ask you some follow-ups on.
Please do.
How much space is inside of a cinder block dimension-wise? I know there's two spaces. What's the thickness of that? I'm trying to picture it.
Yeah. Totally. So a normal block that you would buy at a Home Depot or anything else is typically, they like to say it's 8 by 8 by 16. That's kind of a fib, because you also have to account for the mortar that goes between those blocks as you're building a wall. So it's really about 7 and 5/8 by 7 5/8 by 15 5/8. Doesn't matter. It's an 8 by 8 by 16. Inside of those, the walls of those are typically about 1 inch to 1.5 inches in thickness. And then the void area itself, do the math, right? You get about a 4 by 7 or something like that void in the middle there that you put your rebar in, and you put your whatever your respective fill happens to be.
Okay, that makes sense, because you said it takes you stop projectiles within 3 inches. You have a 4-inch space to put the stuff in.
Right, but the armor block itself is also made out of this material, re-engineered to be able to be made into blocks. Remember, I said that the shield was kind of liquidy.
Yes.
We re-engineered it. Yeah, we re-engineered it to be able to stamp out these blocks, much like any normal concrete company does for their normal CMUs. And so we can mass produce these. We can actually literally make 6 of these at a time in about 3 seconds. And the beauty of that means that we can go to any company that makes concrete masonry units, and they can now make our product as well.
My mind is blown. This is great stuff. How does someone determine that what are the applications for this? I mean, I live in a house in the suburbs, so do you.
Sure.
I'm thinking police departments, I'm thinking military, and I'm thinking shooting ranges would be your main target audience. But what are some other applications where people can use this?
Great question, and I appreciate you asking that. A couple things. One is we have also done stress testing of this. So there's a series of different certification boards out there for construction, and they have standards as to compressive strength, which basically means how much pressure can you put on this from a top-down perspective before the material crumbles. And in the industry, you want to be at least 3,000 to 3,500 pounds per square inch of compression to be a normal equivalent of a concrete block. Our product is 4,500 pounds per square inch, and we actually initially it was over 7,000. We backed it off to make it a little more of a sponge and still maintain the minimum requirements of the amount of downward pressure, the compressive strength that you can deal with. The second part of it is a thing called flexural strength. So instead of thinking top down, think about sideways, like a tornado coming through and putting in a massive amount of pressure on the wall sideways. Normal compressive or flexural strength on that is around 1,200 pounds per square inch. We exceed that. We're around 13,500, so 1,350 pounds per square inch of flexural strength. So we can use this product for building buildings. You honor the same concepts of putting your rebar in there and everything else that you would do normally as building a normal multi-story building, etc., except for using our material, which now is adding for you the blast and ballistic mitigation that normal concrete architectures don't necessarily do for you. So you could use this, Marcus, for building a house or whatever it is you want to do. Secondarily, obviously, if we can build walls for those, we can also build walls for security perimeters and those types of things. And then, of course, you're right. In the military, and if you even think about it, some of the other places like U.S. State Department,
Yes.
FEMA, all these other places could be using these instead of using sticks to rebuild homes that get killed in Puerto Rico or in Florida or wherever with bad storms. Why wouldn't you build it with something that structurally is going to be able to withstand those forces and those velocities and the flying debris and everything else with something that actually works? And to my point on that is we literally have built a machine that's kind of like a humongous potato gun that we can shoot projectiles at our walls. If I'm stopping ballistics, then reasonably speaking, I should be able to stop a 2x4, but that's not always the case. So we actually have tested against that in our facility to make sure that we can, when we go to a third party for certification, beat the standards that they have to go against. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Can you do business with foreign governments?
We can. This is, since it is not an overt or a material that is trying to hurt someone, and in fact is trying to protect them, we do not have to worry about a multitude of laws that the federal government has with regard to those types of products.
Okay.
So we actually have affiliations in Italy, Australia. We're working on one in Poland. Specifically, this group is the largest manufacturer in Poland for buildings. And they are very interested in helping in rebuilding Ukraine once the war stops there. So we actually went to a convention in Warsaw last year, met up with a whole bunch of folks, and I'll tell you, it's horrific what's going on over there. And we would love to be able to get in there and help protect them in better ways. But right now, the focus for them is winning the war, and then we're going to get to the rebuilding portion.
It's funny you say that. One of the things that happened this morning or overnight, and we're recording this on the Thursday before the Sunday, was that there were 2 Jewish people gunned down outside of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. overnight.
I saw that, yes.
Because they were Jewish. So you've got a huge market with the Israeli government if you wanted to approach them, with all their embassies and just a little idea for you. That's all.
Much appreciated.
It's no different than the war in Ukraine. You're protecting people.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. What happened in Washington, D.C. overnight was absolutely horrific. My opinions on a lot of that stuff.
Yes.
That's really not the place to get into, but it's just horrific what's going on in that.
Sounds good. Thank you for saying that. Another question that came up, 2 questions in my head, is there a difference, and this is just because I don't know, between concrete and cement?
Yes. So if you look at cement is, think of Portland cement, and you have a lot of companies that make Portland cement. Cement can be used for a wide variety of things. As I stated earlier, we use it in our product, but we don't see ours as being a concrete. We see it as a material.
Okay.
Whereas concrete, also, if you think about it, you have a series of different levels of concrete. Some that are very soft, and as a matter of fact, kind of the equivalent in our world is our shoot house material. If you recall earlier, I talked about how we have a compressive strength for the production for our industrial side, up to 3,500, 4,000 PSI plus, right? On our shoot houses, because they're absorbing 50, 60, 100,000 rounds before they get repaired, our compressive strength there is only 1,400 pounds per square inch. In a very similar way, concrete can go very low compressive strength, or it can go up to super high compressive strength, where you hear about things that are 30,000 pounds per square inch compressive strength. Problem with those is they are very prone to shattering. So they are very good at stopping a truck ramming into it. The problem is, as soon as that truck rams into it, it tends to crack it, shatter it, or whatever because of it. It's so tightly put together, and it doesn't have that embedded air architecture for it.
How could a house, a company, a corporation, is there a way to retrofit with your product, or are we just talking about building an additional protective wall?
We actually have come up with several different products that we've patented that allow you to do things. One of the things that we had here after Highland Park and the horrific thing that happened on the 4th of July in Highland Park several years ago is we also had a lot of anti-Semitism at the time, and we still do, but we were approached by the large Jewish community up in that area through some people I know who asked about retrofitting in safe rooms and or in construction, building safe houses completely. Like, can we replace our windows? Can we do this? Can we do that? So when that came up, we actually came up with several products that allow you to either retrofit into your facility. And I'll fully admit that in some cases we can't use our product because they want a safe room on the second floor of their house, which was never engineered for the weight of concrete. So we do have affiliations and we have designs using fiberglass. And this would be ballistic fiberglass. Problem with that also, though, is depending upon the rating you want, ballistic fiberglass is not a light product. It is very heavy when you start getting up into the higher level standards of the NIJ or of Underwriters Laboratories. And the other part of that, and I think this is probably a good time to bring this up, Marcus, is that both the NIJ and Underwriters have standards out there, but they have recently redone them and changed their terms. So for years, Underwriters Laboratories had a UL 752 ballistic resistance standards. And they ranked everywhere from level 1 all the way up through level 10, and then they added in shotgun. Level 1 is super low level. It's a 38 round coming from a handgun. Level 10 is stopping the 50 caliber round. And then, of course, shotgun would be a shotgun slug. What they've done recently is completely changed the terms. Everyone's used to these levels, level 1 through level 10, blah, blah, blah. And now they started using subsets like UL, RF, A, or B, or C, which is now Underwriters Laboratories rifle, and then a specific category within the rifles, everything from a 308, a 7.62, a 5.56, and so on. So it's kind of a re-education for certain people because they're so used to the older terms of the different levels under the 752 standard. Or with NIJ, you've heard of things like level 3 or level 4.
Right.
And now they're calling, for instance, level 4 is now NIJ RF3. So consumers are so used to the older terms, and the market is still using the older terms, but there are companies out there now using the newer terms, and it becomes very confusing. So I'll be happy to share that information with you of how kind of the old terms and the new terms correlate, because for your listeners and for anyone, you need to be aware that there are changes occurring within the marketplace and how things will be advertised in the future.
Very interesting. That's great. You're right. I had no idea. I have a level 3 vest, and I probably need to replace it. But I mean, I've had it a while. It's due. I was doing some higher risk training. I'll put it that way, and without giving out too many details, and I felt I needed it. So back to Amidon. How did it start? What was the initial need, or how did the idea come to fruition?
So in 2009, the company started. It was owned by a husband and wife. She and he were both prior military, and they realized that they had the opportunity to take their knowledge of what they had done in the military, and with the help of an individual who's still on our team by the name of Mark Siver, create a product that was better than what the military had already created. In around 2005 or so, might be earlier, they had created a thing called shock-absorbing concrete, better known as SACON. The problem with SACON is that it uses a foaming agent to do that air entrapment that we do with a chemical agent. And the problem with foam is that it does not disperse throughout the material, in this case Portland cement, uniformly. So you might get certain areas where the foam is very dense and other places where there's hardly any foam, in which case their product, Sakon, is not really a very safe product because you don't really know if the air entrapment capabilities and the absorption of that shock are fully distributed throughout the material itself. So Mark Seiber recreated what they had kind of created using the chemical additives we use and using the fibrous material that we use to create Amidon products. And initially they were used for live fire training facilities for the military. In fact, we built the largest live fire training facility in a place called 29 Palms that is still actively used today. It's received over 200 million rounds, absorbed them with no real issues. It's all repairable in place, etc. It also is used for detonations and blasts, and we have over 120,000 blasts, including hand grenades and certain types of IEDs they've been testing and so on, that have been absorbed by our products. When we acquired the company in around 2019, we also ran into a little thing you may have heard of called COVID.
Right.
And the problem we had with COVID was a lot of our contacts in the government kind of went radio silent when everything got shut down. And so we took the opportunity to re-engineer what was really a shoot house product and had that very low compressive strength of 1,400 pounds per square inch, and said we should be using this in the private sector and in other government facilities for being able to literally build buildings. So that's where Amidon Shield came out of, was our re-engineering during that time, figuring out how to modify what was already in use for the live fire training facilities to be able to use into true construction architectures. And from there, we were able to come up with Shield, which is that very liquidy version that's good for filling voids and pour in place and creating molds and all those types of things. From there, we went to Armor Block, which are those equivalent of concrete masonry units so that any mason can build the wall, and then you can fill the core with our Shield product.
When we return, we'll be continuing the conversation with Mark Buchmann of Amidon about this terrific material that stops bullets.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.